Make every night a wonderful journey, no matter where you are. Here is your harbor of the soul. Good night, sweet dreams. The first story. Just Us. Kevin and Kara Starling, age 27. My name is Kevin Starling. I am what the doctors call a chimerical twin. What this means for me is that when I was in the womb, I had an unidentical twin sister, but I absorbed her. This means I have two separate strands of DNA most of the time. When one absorbs the other fetus, it's not detected early, and will only be discovered when the doctor is testing for another illness. In my case, our case, several things made it apparent at birth. One of my eyes is hazel, and the other is blue. I have brown hair on my head but blonde hair everywhere else. I am a big guy, but my feet are dainty. My parents thought this to be no more than a novel turn of events that could make for conversation. The doctors said they saw no reason I could not lead a normal life. What they don't know is what I have been dealing with all my life, along with the two strands of DNA. I also have the consciousness going on inside my head. My parents named my sister Kara. Kara can only talk to me. She is a voice inside my head. She is getting insanely pissed off right now, because I keep referring to us as I or my. She has no control over our body. She can control nothing, but complains and protests frequently. I am not a mean person. I do take her into consideration sometimes, but one of her biggest problems is she is heterosexual. So when I am with a woman, she is completely repulsed. It's kind of a mood killer for me when I'm kissing a woman, and in my head I hear, "Oh my god, that is disgusting. You don't even want to know what masturbation is like." I believe we share sensations when I feel feel pain. Sometimes she responds to it like a NOW. When I have sex, this is a very hard story to write because Kara is reading as I type this. She is having a fit on the things that I am saying. She doesn't like it that I am putting her business on Front Street. Her words, not mine. I know there is no medical procedure to remove my sister from inside me. She is not a physical thing that can be removed. Medication would only numb us both out. I understand her sorrow, because she's a person trapped in another person's body with no recourse. It must be a miserable existence. I'm going to stop now, because she is crying. Sometimes I think we would be better off with a bullet in our head. The second story. Tarn Street Light. Another boring day wasted and made into nothing but me sitting here at this cursed computer. Don't get me wrong, I love the internet. It's my life, but I do suppose I should do something else more often. I clambered from my chair, wrapping my arms tightly about my chest as I shivered. A breeze blew my cracked window, the darkness illuminated by the soothing street light outside. I used to be scared of that lamp for its strange orange-yellow hue, but after all these years I've grown used to it. It half emptied itself from me, and I sat on the edge of my bed, thinking about everything that happened today. Absolutely nothing. Whatever there was always tomorrow to accomplish something productive. The shadows continued to taunt me as I lay in bed, watching the ceiling as if it was going to run off and expose me to the sky. Though I suppose that would be okay, since stars are so beautiful. And it was at that moment that I felt as if there was something there, not the feeling of being watched. Just like I wasn't completely alone. Of course, since I was old enough, I brushed it off as nighttime paranoia. Everyone gets it occasionally, so this was nothing special. Still, I forced my gaze to search the dark corners of my room, and there was nothing there, as I had expected. I sat up in bed and looked out the window, down at the street light on the blacktop. Nothing again. Eventually, I couldn't take it and got up. I went downstairs and grabbed a glass of milk, chugging 2 glasses of the creamy goodness before hauling myself up the steps again. It's 2 in the morning, and I still haven't slept. I don't feel like anything's with me anymore. But it's the thought that there had been, or at least expected there to be, that kept me from drifting off. I lied still and awaited the dread to return. But it never did. To 30 now. And there's still no feeling, in fact. I don't even know why I'm still awake in the first place. I'm exhausted, dreary and in serious need of a back massage. But that could wait. The shadows seemed to be moving for some odd reason, like a hallucination. But that was fine, maybe it would get me to sleep. For 15. And I woke up from a troubled sleep. But there is something in this room. I'm sure of it now. A burglar? A murderer? No, nothing would wait so long. My God, I feel so unsure right now. I'm not even sure if I am unsure. Am I? I'm not going to bother thinking anymore, just focus on reaching for the phone. I'm choking. It feels like I'm choking. Why is it so hard to breathe? Why can't I answer any of my questions and actually believe myself? Something dripped onto my stomach, something dripped. I reached down, breath staggered, and ran my fingers through the substance. I sniffed at it, almost expecting it to be blood. But it wasn't. It almost smelled like... What? I fumbled for my nightstand, where the phone sat so close, coughing slightly from the rancid jelly, like goo spilling from my mouth and nose. In my stupor, I swatted the phone from its rack and instead settled for turning on the light. I did so, and stared dumbfounded down at the sight. I was painted with black. The liquid was warm, bubbling all over me, staining my pajama top. I pried some from my lower lip and stared at it, flicking it between my digits. It curled around my fingers and slid up my wrist. My hands grabbed frantically at the tar. I was going to vomit. I knew it, and I did. But the ebony mass slithered against the regurgitated milk and dinner. It forced it back down, and I swallowed the object out of instinct. I writhed and retched again from the sour, acrid hot flavor scourging my tongue. I felt a sudden sharp pain in my gut, then a small pop, a tug on my organs within. I hurled all over my bed, the stench overwhelming my senses as it was stained with red. I hacked against the tar, churning my innards into a soup of agony. The torment constricted my lungs, like something was ripping at them. I hurled again, feeling something thick and heavy splatter out onto my plush pillow. I dropped to the carpet. Spasms jarred my nerves, causing me to lock up. I couldn't believe this was real. It must be a dream. I must be sleeping at last, but no. Nothing so tortuous could exist in my unconscious mind. I gripped the wet shag like a lifeline. I rolled onto my back, the pain excruciating, throbbing, and stinging all at the same time. Something, the tar, pushed at the wall of my belly, in the spot where my stomach used to reside, now either floating unattached, or now like old and repulsive light head somewhere. I was drooling. Black overflowed onto the ground and over my freezy, leading skin shadows crept teasingly into my vision, and I had never been as scared as I was now. I had never been a fighter, and I almost welcomed the relief languidly billowing up my bones. Was I dying? I think I was. My mahogany view fell on the creepy, lurching mass. It undulated in uneven waves, twining and impaling itself before bubbling out again. The sludge, something so disgusting, revealed a female figure beneath it. Just a girl, or a college-aged woman. A look of hope filled my visage, but no smile came. I couldn't muster enough energy to do so. This female reminded me almost of myself with pallid attire. Her figure, Hands, feet, mouth, eyes, nose, clothes, it all dripped. I gave her a frantic expression, begging her for help, but also partially wishing she would leave. The thing had literally formed her, or maybe they were the same thing. How was I still able to think all this? What scared me the most, however, was not those thoughts. It was the soft, compassionate smile on her face. The tar didn't seem the least of her problems, which strengthened my resolve. She crouched beside me, setting surprisingly cold and sharp objects on my cheek. They were not knives. I couldn't see anything beyond a graceful metal curve and a ginger pinprick. Her breathing hissed, silvery and echoing, as if from another world entering my fading hearing. What is the color of emptiness? I couldn't move. All I could do was stare into the emotionals' narrowed vermilion orbs. She lightly patted me, but even that was enough to feel the sting from the wicked points on those hooks. You don't know? She offered, as if this was casual conversation. I struggled, breath-racked, and finally formed the action of nodding. She smiled delightedly, the look flicking to one of disturbing calmness, like someone else had taken over. I figured. She sneered. No one ever thinks of those filled with nothing, because there's nothing left to think about. The third story. My mother's baking. My mother loved to bake. She would always make the best pies, and cookies, and all kinds of delicious treats. They always had the right amount of chocolate, sugar, or nuts in them. They had a taste that everybody sweet has craved. Whenever someone asked her what she put in her baking to make it taste so great, she would always reply with a secretive smile on her face, "It's our secret ingredient." Then she would ruffle my hair or pat me on the back. I would always help her with baking. I remember when I first helped her. I was 4 or 5 years old. My mother was preparing all the ingredients and told me to wash my hands before touching anything. Then she said, "Hold out your right hand." Of course, at the time I didn't know the difference between left and right, so I held out the wrong hand. "Other hand," my mother said, frowning, so I switched hands. "Good. A little trick to remember which hand is left is to hold up your index finger and your thumb. See? Now, put your right hand." I checked to see which hand was left and which was right over this bowl. "Good. Now face it so the palm is upwards." I did what she said. Wait here a moment. My mother turned around and began rummaging around in one of the cupboards that contained all the silverware. She turned around. I saw a bright flash and felt something sharp slice across my hand. I let out a shriek as a bright red line appeared across my palm. My mother quickly grabbed my arm and squeezed a few drops into the bowl. I stood completely frozen. My mother crouched down and wiped away my tears with her thumb. "Shh, it's okay. That's just a tiny cut. It won't kill you. Mommy just needs your blood to make the cookies taste better. I promise that it'll be better by tomorrow." "Okay, sweetheart." I nodded. We continued to make cookies after that. I admit, they tasted pretty damn good when we finished. After that, whenever I would bake with my mother, she would always ask me to hold my right hand over a bowl, palm facing upwards, cut along the newly formed scar, and squeeze at least 3 drops on blood into it. But one day, when I was 11 or 12, my mother said that a couple of drops of blood wouldn't make her special cake sweet enough, so she told me to place my left arm on the table and cut a small chunk out of it. It hurt a lot, and I screamed and cried when my father got home and saw the blood-stained bandage wrapped around my arm. My mother said that I had tripped and bashed it against a sharp corner on the sidewalk. Soon, even chunks of my skin wasn't enough for her, and she went so far as to cutting off the flesh that covered my ribs. That was when my father started getting suspicious. By the time I was 16, I barely had any muscle on my left arm. The scar on my right hand was so deep, I had to keep a bandage on it for the entire day, so it wouldn't bleed everywhere, and you could see my rib bones. She would always tend to the wounds, of course, dressing them, and then bandaging them up. My father eventually caught her trying to cut my thumbs off, and she ended up being put into a mental asylum for the criminally insane, or something similar. Eventually time went by and I met a nice man. We got married and had 3 kids, 2 boys and a little girl. I enjoy baking lots, but my cakes don't seem to have the flavor I'm looking for. They almost need to be sweeter.